Welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you on. I know you got some stories.
Yeah.
What is your clean date?
September 7th, 2023.
Okay, so you got almost a year.
Yep.
That's exciting.
I know, right? The first time ever in my life.
Now, what was going on September 6th of 2023?
So the night before the law knocked on the door, I went and bought some stuff and I ended up falling asleep. And that morning, um, woke up to banging on the door, and it was Dorchester County Sheriff's Department. Somebody had reported me for child neglect, drugs, said that there was stuff going on, and we were in a hotel at that time. Um, and they came in, they didn't find any drugs. They ran my name, and it came back with warrants for probation violation, and two warrants in Orangeburg, a warrant in Berkeley, a warrant in Charleston, and a warrant in Dorchester.
That's quite the list.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at some hefty time.
So, did you grow up in South Carolina?
I did. I did grow up there. I grew up in Gaston, South Carolina with my mom and my dad and my brother. And then at the age of, I think it was 18, I moved to Charleston. And that's kind of when it's not when it started, but that's when it spiraled.
And now, are you the oldest or the youngest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay, so the oldest makes the mistakes.
Right.
I'm the oldest too, so I know that I was the one that made the mistakes, and my brother and sister learned from them.
Right.
Um, Now, when was the first time did you discover drugs first or alcohol first?
Drugs.
What kind of drugs were you introduced to at a young age?
The first, I was like 15, and it was pain pills my grandmother gave me. Tramadol, to be exact.
No, what?
Amount
Why
of
did why did she give you tramadol?
So my grandmother, she was the person I was closest with my entire life. She never judged me, but she was not the best character. You know, she didn't give you the best advice in life. I had actually ripped a toenail off at her house, and she's like, "Oh, I got something for that." And she took me to the back bedroom and she handed me 6 tramadol. 6. And she says, "Now I'm not giving you any more till tomorrow." Well, I took 2 and I just started feeling really good. So I took the other 2. And then I took the other 2. And then they were gone. And so I went to her and I told her, I was like, I took them all. So she gave me more. It ended up going up to like 10 tramadol twice a day, what she would give me. And I'd eat them like candy. And then she got cancer and started feeding me oxycodones. Overdosed in her house twice. Nobody knew. And then I left there, went to Charleston, and it got really bad there.
Now, which oxycodone was it? Were you snorting or were you just eating?
I was eating them, taking them.
What was she prescribed for the cancer? Was it 30s?
I think it started off at 10s, and over a period of time, it went up to the 30s. And
That was my drug of choice, was the 30 milligram oxys.
Was it?
Yeah, I would snort them like they were candy.
Yeah, I would too. Handfuls of them and pop them in my mouth.
Nose candy for me.
Right.
So you weren't even a drinker then in high school?
No. I did drink, but not much. I did become an alcoholic, after I tried to wing off the drugs. Then I started alcohol. And then I stopped alcohol and went back to drugs.
So when you moved to Charleston, you were 18. Did you move in with like a boyfriend or something, or did you?
I moved in with a guy. Yep. And he introduced me to cocaine.
That's quite the jump from downers.
Right. But the pills, I never felt go down. It in my experiences, it always gave me energy. I would move all over the place. It was crazy. It did me completely opposite of what it did others.
That's for me. I would do them and then I would like clean the house and shit.
Yeah, that's what I did. That was my routine.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. It's almost like when you're an addict, it has the opposite effect of what it's supposed to do.
Right. Right.
when you don't actually need them and you're just taking them.
Oh yeah, I was just eating them.
Now, did you go through withdrawals when you moved and you weren't able to take them all the time?
I kind of found another plug in Charleston that I would get a few from. But I kind of, to be honest with you, switching over to Coke, I didn't have withdrawals. It numbed everything, you know? So I went from being sick to feeling fine, except then I was carrying a bag of cocaine around and I was just sniffing it whenever I could.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, was he an older guy or was he
Um,
your age?
8 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And you guys met in your hometown?
We met whenever I went to Charleston for a weekend.
Now, were anybody in Charleston that you knew besides him?
Nope.
How far away from that is where you grew up?
About an hour and a half.
Oh, so you really just like upended your life.
Yeah.
So was your drug of choice cocaine or did it ever progress into something else?
It progressed. It went from Coke, alcohol, back to Adderall, and then in 2015, methamphetamine became be all. That's all it was meth.
Were you smoking it, shooting it, snorting it?
Smoking and snorting. Yep. And that was because of the guy that I ended up dating then did it. And had never done it before, and I begged him. I was like, choose me over that, and he wouldn't. So I felt like, okay, well, if this is the only way that he'll want me, I'm going to do it. And I did. And when I tell you, from 2015 to 2023, there was never a day I went without it. Not one.
And it was that easily accessible to you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Being in hotels in Charleston, because we eventually lost our house, I split up with my children's father. I started finding ways to make money on my own to be able to stay in hotels. And when you're in hotels, you tend to start to know all the drug dealers and the plugs. And I knew them all. So I could get it for a steal.
Okay. Well, you had kids?
I did with the person that introduced me to cocaine.
How many kids do you have?
3 boys.
How young were you when you had them?
25.
Did you have triplets?
I have twins, a set of twins, and then one's 13 months older.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's almost, my sister just had, she had a baby at the end of June of 2023, and then she had another baby a couple of days later in 2024. So they're a little over a year apart.
Yeah, that's, so I have an older son, from when I was 18, right before I moved to Charleston. I got pregnant at 17, had him at 18, but my mother had him.
Okay, so you have 4 kids altogether then.
4, yeah.
Did you stop at all while you were pregnant?
I did. That was and I can say that's probably the only time that I ever stopped. But as soon as I had them, it was back at it. I mean, right after.
Like you wasted no time.
No time to get high.
Was it something that you just look forward to the entire 9 months? Or did you think that you could be done with it after you had birth?
I thought I could be done with it. I thought it had been long enough, but he was still doing it, So whenever I had the kids, left the hospital, and here. And, I just had a baby, so I was in pain. I was like, okay, screw it. Whatever. If you're doing it, we can do this. We can make it work. It didn't work. It never.
No, it tends not to.
Yeah, never.
Did you lose the kids as a result of going back to the drugs?
No, I didn't lose my kids until 2023 for 8 months. And then I busted my ass to get them back. Yeah.
Okay, so they were hotel hopping with you.
Yes.
Now, if you were doing meth every day, how did you afford that habit?
I was a very good manipulator at the beginning.
Most of us are.
Huh?
Most of us are good manipulators.
Yeah. I was on the news for a check ring that I was running. Then I was selling empty houses that were vacant, and I was having people put large sums of money down to rent those homes for me, and I would just run off with the money. That's actually how I got caught the first time. Um, it was a undercover operation that was notified me on Facebook. They wanted to purchase the house that I had listed, and it ended up being Berkeley County Sheriff's Department.
So let's backtrack. What kind of check ring were you running?
So what I did was, there was a car lot that I had bought a car from, and it ended up blowing up the next day. So I ended up.
What do you mean it blew up?
The motor just went. Like
the car that you got. I thought you meant the car lot blew up, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, the car blew up, and I contacted the car lot, and they were like, well, there's nothing we can do. It's as is. And so I was like, okay, well, fuck you. You're going to give me the fucking money back. So what I did was the check that they given me, I took the account routing numbers off of it, and I started printing my own checks and cashing them. And then that's what I was on the news for. Also.
Were you using just a regular printer?
No. We had a check printer. We had magnetic ink. I had a check system that I would use on the computer to get the font correct to what their normal checks looked like, and that they would scan through the machines. But I would change the account routing numbers to different businesses every couple of days because I know that they would be notified.
Okay, so that's like, did you ever see Catch Me If You Can?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like exactly what he used to do.
Yeah, it was not smart. Not smart. I don't know. Sober, I look at it and I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, what? Sober, you wouldn't catch me doing that. I'm not about to steal from anybody.
Yeah.
High on meth, I felt like I had balls bigger than the president. You know what I mean? Just anything. Nobody could touch me is what I felt like. The most horrible person you'd ever meet in your life.
Now, did you get the idea because of the movie?
No.
Okay. What gave you that idea? Because that's like a well thought out plan. It's not like you just printed it out on your own. That's like well thought out to get all the ink and get all the paper and get all the magnetic. I mean, that's not something you just come up with in the heat of the moment.
No.
What made you think to do that?
What'd you say?
What made you think that you could get away with it?
So in my earlier years, I worked in finance. And I knew how the finance things ran. I knew what the banks looked for and wanted. I knew what the companies, I worked at payday loan companies. I worked at finance companies. And so, I had a judge tell me, he said, you were the smartest white collar criminal I've ever met in my life. He said, and I'll never forget what he said to me because we were standing. This is when they caught me for the probation violation, absconding, and the lady that I had just robbed on one of the houses that I had sold. And he said, I sat in my chambers for 24 hours trying to figure out what to charge you with because you had your victims sign away their rights to legal litigation against you and fine print on the bottom of these contracts. And I did. At the bottom of these contracts, I typed up, you're aware that this is a scam. Any money given to the scammy is completely non-refundable, and you were waiving all legal right to legal litigation against the scammy. People never read the small print. And I made them sign it. And so the judge said, but you know what? What you didn't think about is you obtained those signatures under false pretense. And I was like, oh, that's a misdemeanor. He said, but I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to go ahead and up those to felonies. And I was like, how the fuck can he do that? 250,000 times 2. I was in there on a $500,000 bond. Terrible.
You worked payday loan. It's funny because one of my scams was payday loans. There was a time that I got drug tested at work on a Monday because I was snorting 30s in the parking lot, and I came in all high, and they took me for a random drug test, and I knew I was going to fail. I was on probation that week from like they sent me home without pay until the drug test came back. I knew on this was on a Monday. I knew on Friday it was going to come back dirty. So on Tuesday, I signed up for a payday loan and thinking I would only get a couple $100, and I did. I got approved for 300, and then all of a sudden, I kept getting phone calls from different companies offering me $300. So I took a total of $3,000 in payday loans in a matter of 3 hours,
Yeah.
and then took the money out, closed my bank account, and they couldn't get into my bank account, take the money back. And when they called me for the money, they tried saying that's wire fraud. And I said, no, I lost my job. I lost my employment. Because you know how they call to make sure that you're employed before they release the money. But when they called HR doesn't disclose that I'm out on, potential drug, you know what I mean, drug tests. So all HR can say legally is, yes, he works here, and no, he doesn't work here. So every time they would call HR, it was a pretty big company. So HR isn't like in my building with me. HR is just off somewhere doing a check saying, yeah, he works here. Wow. And I collected a total. I did that with 3 different jobs.
Wow.
So they still to this, that was in 2012, 2013, 2011, something around there. And still to this day, I get phone calls.
About that?
About that. Yep. And
the payday loan companies, I did that, but I had somebody I would change the contact information for the business. And I would have friends sitting outside on the phone verifying my employment.
Yeah, that's smart too. Yep. Payday loans were an easy thing for me to get. It's funny. You're the first person I've talked to out of 160 people or something like that understand the payday loan scam that I used to do.
It was easy, especially when they were just opening those businesses. I started doing it. No, go that way. I started doing it in 2007. That's 2007 to 2009.
Yep. It was easy money. All I had to do was just collect it and put it into my bank account and then close the bank account out. Yeah. And to this day, I can't get a bank account.
I can't either.
I have to use like Cash App and Venmo as my bank accounts for my work for direct deposit.
Yeah, because that's what I have to use.
I'm on a blacklist with the banks.
I am too.
So the only time I could open a bank account up was for a business, and they let me open a bank account for a business because it wasn't under my social. It was under the business IEN. Right. So I wasn't being checked for my previous bank accounts.
Right.
And I didn't fuck up that one. That one went back down to 0, and I never deposited money into it or took money out.
Right.
Because that was in sobriety.
Right.
So I wasn't trying to screw anybody over like I did in the in the past.
Right.
But that still didn't change anything. I tried getting a bank account a few months ago, and I got shut down again.
Yeah, I have to, not recently, but it's okay. It is what I've done.
Yeah. Now, are you with the person you used with?
No. Oh, well, we are together, but this is the 3rd relationship.
When did you meet?
4 years ago.
Okay. And I would assume that's, because you were still in addiction then.
Mm-hmm.
The things we do in addiction. Did you ever serve time in jail for anything that you did?
I did. Numerous.
And you still got high in jail?
No, I didn't get high. That was what people found weird about me is when I would get incarcerated, I would say I'm changing my life. Like this is a sign. And there were people that would try to give you stuff. And I was like, I don't want that shit. If I do that, I'm never going to get out. Like that's what I would tell myself. God's not going to let me leave if I get high in here.
You must have went through some gnarly psychosis being in. No?
No.
You're lucky. I have a friend who just quit meth, and she's going through some crazy psychosis, like still to this day, and it's been over a month now.
Yeah, my children's father, he's permanently that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, because people don't realize with meth, and for those who have never used meth, I've never used meth, but I've talked to enough people on my show to hear it. Is there's no physical withdrawals, but it's the mental withdrawals that really, keep you sick.
Um, for
Did
me,
you go through physical withdrawals?
the physical was extremely tired because it depletes the dopamine in your brain, the feel good. So, not having any dopamine, my moods were awful. I slept for 2 weeks straight, sweats, stomach upset from eating so much because you deprive yourself when you're using meth. You don't eat, um, and so as I did over a period of time of doing it, things would change. Like I could eat on it. Like people even say, like, "How did you do meth and you have all of your teeth?" And I'm like, "It was hygiene. People forget to brush their teeth high on meth. They just do." And so that's one thing that people always go like, "Well, how do you have all of your teeth?" And I'm like, I was a functional addict, in my opinion. I worked on TikTok every day. I made sure my kids were good, even getting high. But at the end, you could tell I was just tired. I didn't want to get high anymore. I was tired of having to wake up every morning and go in the bathroom and roll the bowl, or if I bust the ball, be fucking pissed because I didn't have any way to get to the store. Like, or, the dope man not answering the phone early in the morning because he was up all night, and then I'd have to go to the other dope man and then he'd charge me outrageous prices. And then my kids saw the anger in me, when I couldn't get it right when I wanted it. I was fucking awful. Mean. But as soon as I got it, yeah, that was completely different. I didn't give a fuck. I was like, oh yeah, here. And
Yeah, people don't realize they can buy a meth bowl at like any gas station.
right. And you can. Any gas station. You just tell them you want the flour vial. That's what I used to tell them. I'm like, can you give me the flour vial over there? And I'd walk out with it in my hand. They'd put it in the paper bag and I'd take it out. It's like, what are you going to do? You don't know what I'm using it for, which everybody did. They're not dumb.
Yeah, I was going to say everyone knows.
Yeah.
It's almost like when I walk into 7-Eleven, they grab me my cigarettes without me even asking.
Right.
It's like they know why I'm there. Did they ever just grab it when you walked in? Like, here you go, we have this ready for you.
Yeah, they would. The guy was saying, hello, Christina. And I'm like, hi, I need one of those. Oh, I don't have that on one today. I'm like, well, I need that. So, that's just, it was awful. I was a terrible person. And I think I told you a little bit that I had gotten really big on TikTok.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So I started doing mediumship readings on TikTok and, tarot readings. And when I say in 3 years I blew up, I was making $7,000 to $9,000 a month. Have nothing to show for it. Nothing.
Now, are you actually a medium?
Yeah. And it's, I still have people that know that I'm sober now. I get on TikTok still, not like I used to, but I get on there and I talk about, I was an addict. I used people. I manipulated people. And there were, I did need help with my living situations. There was days that we didn't have the money. I had people give me the money for a place and we would get into it, or I couldn't find one that day. So we would go to an Airbnb, and I would spend the money that we needed for a place on the Airbnb for a week. And so after that week, we'd have to move again, I was not responsible with the help that was given to me. I took it for granted. A lot of good-hearted women helped me for years, trying to help me survive with my children. And looking at it now, why did they help me for so long? It's not like, and everyone now on TikTok says, well, like, we knew something was up, but we couldn't tell. I look at pictures and I'm going, I drew my eyebrows on like this wide and this thick. and wore makeup caked on my face and bright red hair. How did you not and you would hear my torch clicking in the background every 20 minutes on live. I would get out of the screen and get back like that. I'm like, come on, y'all had to have been. And there's some people that say they do, but there's some people like, oh, we knew something was up, but we didn't know what. I'm like, I was doing drugs, I was getting fucking high. And I heard, and this is something I heard a lot of people. I heard a lot of really good people that had the best intention for me and my children. And sober, I can't take it back. I can't. Saying sorry doesn't justify what I did. There's a few of the people that helped me that still stick around, and they're my best friends now. They watched my recovery, and I talk to them 2, 4, 5, 6 times a week. They're from different states, but even when I was incarcerated, there was one girl, her name's Wendy, that even when I was in jail would talk to my kids, ask how I was doing. She put money on the phone for me to talk to my kids. Even after she found out I was an addict, after she had helped me that entire year with thousands of dollars, she didn't turn her back on me. And that's something that I prize, you know what I mean? Because she is an amazing friend. She's an amazing mom. So even in my addiction, all the bad stuff that happened, I met really good, amazing people that in my addiction, I manipulated and used and didn't get to know them, but sober, she's one of my best friends. If I could take it all back, I would.
Yeah. Now, did you serve any time when you got arrested on the 7th of September?
I did. So I went in September 7th and I got out in November. I think it was November 17th. But the only reason I got out was a girlfriend of mine paid the lawyer for me to represent me, to rescind one of the bench warrants, and to get me moved faster through all 4 of the counties I had to go through, or else I would have been sitting for 5 years. She is still one of my best friends. She knew me in my active addiction. She knew me before my active addiction got really heavy. She used to babysit my children. And she's just like, I was just talking to her yesterday, and she was like, I knew that you had a good soul. You were just lost. But yeah, I served time then. I'm on probation currently. They put all of I have 5 probations that they've put into one from different counties. And I'm on probation in one county, and they're all running concurrent. So my restitutions are really, really high. Really high. I'm actually going back to court next month to try to get some of those fines removed, like the admin fees and the supervision fees. My probation officer is trying to help me with that because he sees like $400 a month is a lot.
Yeah, I was on probation once during addiction, and it was for 6 months, and my restitution was $4,500.
Oh wow.
But within the 6, mine was a theft charge, not anything drug related.
Right.
I was house sitting for somebody, and because they had dogs.
Yeah.
And on Xanax, because Xanax was something that I would steal with. I stole a bunch of jewelry and sold it. And of course, I pawned it at the nearest pawn shop like an idiot. You know what I mean? That was the first place they checked.
Yeah.
And I had to pay back $4,500 in restitution and 100 hours of community service and no drug test, though.
Really?
So, yeah, because it wasn't drug related.
Right.
So my grandmother gave me the money to pay the fine, and I paid the fine off really quickly. And then I did the community service within 3 months. So they let me out of probation within 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Because I had paid the restitution back. They didn't have to check on that. I did the community service, and it was a first offense. So it ended up, getting expunged off my record because it was the first offense.
Right. See, I don't have any drug charges. None. Mine are all financial thefts, stolen cars.
Stolen cars, you skipped over that earlier.
Oh yeah, 2 grand larceny charges.
Now, were they cars that you just tell me about one of them experiences?
One of them, I made an ID with my picture on it with someone else's name, and I went and rented a car from a rental place in someone's name and then stole it.
You really had a thing going there with fake checks, fake IDs.
I was never a dumb individual growing up. I had brains, but I never used it properly. People tell me, like, wow, Christina, you're really smart to be doing drugs. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, criminal was better to me. It wasn't mine. And I could do it the way I wanted it to take it and not have to pay for it, It was a 2019 Shelby GT Mustang. Had the holograms on the ground. I got that's a grand larceny charge. They charged me $10,000 for that car that I'm paying in restitution right now, on top of all of my other financial thefts.
Yeah, so you got quite the restitution then. $400 a month makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How long are you on probation for?
5 years. It'll be suspended to 2. Is once 3 of them, if I pay the restitution, then they'll drop it. But the other 2, it's mandatory. I have to fly it all the way out. Drug test 3 months.
Now, were you ever put on probation before when you were getting in trouble?
No, I didn't start doing really heavy stuff until 2017 is when I started with the big financial stuff. The cars,
the houses,
TikTok. When you start accumulating more money, you get greedy. And I was greedy. I wanted more. And it was never enough for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you were supporting your daily habit, and were you just getting in bulk and smoking all day long?
Yeah, 7 grams every 3 days.
So you were going through a quarter ounce a week.
Yeah.
Or no, you were going through over an ounce a week.
Well, yeah. I had the plugs tell me, they're like, why don't you just buy the ounce? And I was like, no, that's too much to carry on me. I move around too much. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, why didn't you just buy in bulk? It would be cheaper.
I moved around too much I was staying in really nice hotels. I stayed in the Hamptons. I stayed in the Marriotts. I paid $150, $200 a day for hotel rooms. And I learned quickly that certain of those huge hotels don't like extended stayers. They do not. So they like to be nosy and knock on the doors. I've had the law called, and we had to pack everything up and within a hurry. We'd be going down the stairwell and the police would be coming up the elevator. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's not like you were motel hopping, you were hotel hopping.
Right.
There's a big difference to those who don't know. Motel hopping, you could stay there for a month and they're going to take you because they don't have much business. But hotel hopping, they want that turnover. They want you to stay 2-3 nights.
Oh, yeah, that's it. So that in September 7th, when I got picked up, we were in a lower end hotel. I was tired of moving, so we started staying at this suburban extended stay, which was a trap hotel. And, we were getting ready. 2 days before the law came, I was like, we got to move. We've been here too long. Time to go. And I went to sleep. Plan was to leave the next day. And that didn't happen.
How did they catch you there? Do you know?
An anonymous call. Apparently someone from TikTok.
The TikTok knew you were staying there?
TikTok. I had a lot of people at that time that were starting to wonder what the fuck was going on with me, because that's when I started that severe downward spiral. Like, I was nodding off on live because I'd been up for 3 days, and I'd be like, oh fuck, my shirts would have like stuff all over them. Noticeable shit. My mouth would get real dry and these white lines in the middle. It was awful. And I would go on these anger tantrums, but they would pay attention to like my background. You'd be amazed at what people do to find you. Like, or people that I thought were my friend would ask me things, and me not thinking, I'd tell them something. So it was somebody that I was talking to at that time that knew where I was.
Okay. Now, you served 2 months, basically, a little over 2 months. And when you got out, you were slapped with 5 years of probation. Do you get drug tested for the probation?
Every month.
Okay. Now, is that what's keeping you clean, or do you work a program of any kind?
No, I do NA.
Okay, so do I.
Yeah, I do Narcotics Anonymous on the Zoom ones online.
Yeah, I do one at noon every day. It's based out of Rhode Island.
Okay, yeah, mine are at night. I do the ones that are based in my state. I have a sponsor, but like the last time when I got put out, and they initially put me on probation before I absconded, because I ran for 2 years. I could have gotten clean then. I just wasn't ready. But this time, like, they haven't drug tested me in 2 months. But it's okay. He can come in the house right now and pop one and I'd pass it. I don't want that life anymore. I'm not in hotels. We have a house. Like, we just got an 85-inch TV, something I would have never fucking had, I got a makeup mirror that instead of being in the hotel bathrooms, I got a fucking crimper. I never thought I'd have one, that was bought sober from my boyfriend. I've gotten stuff for my birthday and Mother's Day, and my kids, I was able to buy them school clothes and go to school and be that mom, not afraid and not ashamed of showing up at the school and them noticing that I was doing something. You couldn't pay me enough to go back.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, do you do daily meetings, or do you do them a couple nights a week?
I do them twice a week. I work Monday through Friday, and that keeps me busy too, something I've never done. I never worked a job since I was like 18 or 19 in the finance industry, I would, every now and then I'd work odd jobs, and then I had the landscape business with my kid's father, but we were doing coke at that time. So we weren't profiting shit. It was all going up our nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want it more. You have to want it.
Yeah, you have to want it more than needed. I had a friend when I was in rehab that relapsed in rehab, and she was upset and crying that she messed up, and she kept saying to me, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I was like, well, that's the difference. I said, I want to do this.
Right.
I want to do this for me. You need to do it for somebody else. You need to do it for your parents or your brother and sister or you know what I mean? And I want to do this for me, and that's why it's working.
Right.
And I still haven't touched opiates since I went to rehab 6 years ago.
That's good.
I got 6 years without opiates, 4 years without alcohol, and 4 months without benzos or weed.
That's good. Really?
Yep.
See,
go ahead.
I did. You did a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I started out with drinking at a young age, like 11, and then I started smoking weed around 13. And actually, the 4-month mark was the longest I've gone without smoking weed since I was 13. I'm 37, almost 38 now.
That's amazing.
When I went to rehab, I went to a place called High Sobriety in Los Angeles.
Right.
And they taught you how to use weed as a medicine instead of using it as like a drug of choice.
Huh.
So I got off opiates from using weed.
Really?
So yeah. So during the first like 6 out of 6 years, I still haven't touched opiates. I was smoking a lot though.
Right.
And it turned into I was supposed to be medicating with it, and then it turned into me abusing it.
Right.
And I was also abusing my Valium that I had. And
Yeah.
I got prescribed Valium, and next thing you know, I found myself snorting the Valium.
Yep.
So I had to, get clean again and start over again with my new clock. So now my sober date is April 1st. But I still celebrate the 6 year mark without opiates and the 4 year mark without alcohol, because just because I had a relapse, I'm not going to take those victories away from myself.
Right. As you should. As you should.
So, well, I'm glad to hear you're staying sober nowadays.
Yeah.
No more scams.
No. No. I. You know, my kids is what I do it most for. Just myself, but for my children, I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. Do you know how hard it is for a 9-time convicted felon to get a job, a decent one? Like, I have a job. There's no benefits. It pays, it's not nothing, but every place that I've applied to turns me down. I'll get the job. Like, oh, we got to run the background check. I'm like, well, there goes that out the fucking window. And then I'll get an email, sorry, we've decided not to go with you. And I'm like, of course you fucking did, because you don't want to give somebody a chance, but it's my fault. And I don't want my children to do what I have done. That is, they're 14, and 15. I'm almost out of time to get them to stay straight. You know what I mean? So any and everything that I can possibly do, I'm doing. I don't want them to end up like I was. So, but I'm happy now. I call them fat and sober. Food became my fucking addiction. It's terrible. Like, I eat. But you know what? I'd rather be eating than rolling the bowl in my mouth.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you came on and told some stories and got some stuff off your chest.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm still blown away by the check scam and the house. Like, you literally put in the contracts, this is a scam.
I did. It was awful. I laugh at it now because I'm like, you are so stupid. Do you not realize the charges that gave you? But yeah,
Were you just taking down payments and running?
Yeah, $10,000 a pop.
That's quite the down payment.
$10,750 a month.
Was it to sell the house or rent the house?
To own.
Okay, then the 10,000 makes a lot of sense now. I was gonna say, to rent a place, you're talking maybe $2,000, maybe $3,000 at the most.
Yeah. It was $5,000 to $10,000 down is what I would do.
Now, were you getting in the house and taking? I'm still flabbergasted. Were you getting in the house and taking pictures of the empty house?
I would meet people at the houses.
And then
I'd let them walk in.
Did you already break in, or did you go to houses that were empty? And so, like, I'm still blown away by this.
This is terrible. I'm laughing because I'm like, what was wrong with you? I would hire these guys. I pay them $100 to break into the house. And sometimes it was just vacant, empty houses that were just sitting, I would have them beating on hammers in the house like they were renovating the house. And I would tell these individuals that the house would be renovated by the time they moved in.
Well, you're not dumb.
No. I'm laughing because it's like, why would you do? In a sober mind, I'm looking at it like, do you realize what charges you're about to get? Breaking and entering, fraud, obtaining signature under false pretenses. Like, it just goes on and on.
Well, Christina, I appreciate you sitting down and being so open about your past. Not everybody's as open as you are, but it seems like you're an open book about it and you want to teach people that what not to do.
I do. don't make the same mistakes I did,
Yep. Well, thank you again, Christina. Have a good day.
No, thank you so much. You too, darling.
Bye bye.
Bye.